to inspire, heal, and transform, reminding us that every challenge is a chapter and every success is a triumph worth sharing. Hi there, welcome to the Spark, a podcast dedicated to bringing you stories of transformation, real stories of some silent heroes. This podcast is about resilience, hard work, willpower, and determination. It is about the desire to succeed. We are here to share our challenges, failures, and victories with the hope of inspiring each and every one of you. My name is Mabel Shu, and I am your host. My guest for today is Gideon Ahenkorah. Gideon is a development, communication, and media relations specialist with over 8 years of diverse experience across civil society, media, the private sector, and technology. He holds a first degree in communication studies and a master's in business administration, focused on marketing. Currently pursuing a second master's in development communication, Gideon is also a 2017 ActionAid Global Learning Platform Scholar. His experience in journalism and media relations enables him to forge vital connections among civil society, the private sector, and the media, fostering collaborative efforts towards sustainable development. Additionally, Gideon's storytelling expertise allows him to craft compelling narratives that highlight development initiatives and deepen stakeholder engagement across multiple platforms, driving impactful development outcomes. I've been privileged to read some of Gideon's stories, and I can bet that he is actually a very good storyteller. Hi, Gideon. It's so great to have you on this platform today. Thank you very much for honoring my invitation.
Hello, it's a pleasure to be on your platform today and happy to be here.
Great. Okay, so Gideon, let's go back to your childhood. Just share with us those dreams you had when you were a child. Remember when we were kids, they usually ask us, what's that thing you want to be when you grow up? So can you share with us some of those dreams you had as a child?
Wow, this is like taking me back all the way. It's a very interesting question. So growing up for me, I grew up in Ghana, born in the Eastern region,
Okay.
to an Ashanti and an Achem parents. And then I spent some time of my early days in Eastern region and then Ashanti region as well. You know, growing up, I wasn't really fascinated by the superheroes, football, like many of my peers.
You're right.
You know, as a boy, as a young boy, of course, people have that sort of interest for football. Like you need to be following things that boys are following, right? But for me, I was completely different. I wasn't really fascinated by those things. My heroes were storytellers.
Right.
And I enjoyed documentaries. When I watched documentaries, it was all about how the stories were put together to tell interesting, to convey very interesting narrative about issues. I dreamt of being a newscaster, and I used to watch news and how these newscasters will be presenting the news on various channels. It was sort of an interesting thing to me. And so growing up, I've always wanted to be a newscaster.
Oh, interesting.
Right. So from even at early stage in my education, primary school, I was the library boy. Even to the junior high school too, I maintained the same position. I was told that if I wanted to be someone who will be speaking, who will be doing public speaking. I need to really know how to play with words.
Right.
And so I thought, okay, why not? Library means that I have to be in the library and be reading, and so on and so forth. But when I went to high school, I was the library prefect again. And on top of it, I was elected as the media club president,
Interesting.
where I had opportunity to be editing my PS write-ups, So that was the time that I realized my dream was taking shape. But still, I really didn't know the direction where I was heading to, right? So, I mean, that is how my early childhood, my childhood days were like.
Interesting. So, Gideon, I'm just listening to your story and I'm wondering at that young age, what was the thing you enjoyed most that made you gravitate towards being fascinated by documentaries? Because you said that it had started at a young age. Was it influence from your parents, or what kind of pressures were around you that made you interested in this?
Okay, so basically, there was a time that I went to church, I followed my parents to church, and there was a drama, like there was a
Right,
choreography,
right.
and I was just observing, at a tender age, I was just observing some of these things. And then subsequently, I joined the drama club,
Okay.
right,
Okay.
in the church, and we were part of some sort of activities. And during that time, whilst initially I used to watch them do it, right? But I was part of it. Then I felt that, this is kind of an exciting, especially when you are able to, usually when you speak, those that were sort of speaking English, I don't know, for some reason, they really love kids to be speaking English here and there. So
Right.
if you are able to speak like, quite good amount of volumes of words, you express yourself so well. You see the parents actually clapping.
Yeah,
And I
right.
realized that this is really something that, even older people really like. So why not? It's something that I want to grow myself into. But like I said, I didn't know that like drama could lead me to anything, right? But
Exactly.
my passion was driven towards how my parents and other people, older people, were so interested in children that could really speak so well, that sort of thing. So I was just drawn to that.
It looks like you had loved being in the spotlight from a very young
I
age.
think so. I mean, that's basically the thing.
Okay. So I think with you, it was a little easier to identify that thing you wanted to do because from a young age, you already had interest in some of these things. So now getting to the university, how were you able to identify what courses to take? Because you just said that while in secondary school or so, you were not very sure. So what influenced the courses you took at the university? Because sometimes depending on the courses we take, that's what determines the career path some people follow. So what influenced the courses you took at the university?
Yes. So like I initially mentioned, um, when I was in the high school, I was elected as the media club president.
Yeah.
And in this capacity, I had the opportunity to be doing editorial work,
Right.
even at that age,
Okay.
at that level of my education. So before we step out there for the tertiary level, I was fortunate to get a coach
Okay.
in high school
Right.
who happened to be the matron for the club, right? He coached me and told me that he sees potentials in me, right? And he thinks that I'm a good cat for I'm a good for being a journalist, right?
Okay.
So then at that time, I didn't know much about what tertiary institution is even offering those sort of courses, even though I was doing some research. But then he told me that there is a school that is focused on that in Ghana, that is owned by the government, and it's very highly competitive. But once I get into it, I'll be able to. So he guided me through the process of applying to formally, it was called Ghana Institute of Journalism.
Okay.
And I got admitted there, and the course I chose was journalism, obviously. So that was where. So I mean, when I found myself there, I knew that I wasn't really lost. I
Yeah.
was still,
You're
on
in the
track.
right place.
Yeah.
Yeah. So sometimes it's difficult to find people who believe in you and are willing to help you. So my understanding is that he identified that this was something you were good at and reached out to you to provide guidance. It's not like you went to him and said you needed guidance.
Absolutely.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. But now in the university, did you have any other person who served as a mentor or somebody you looked up to, a role model kind of thing, or did your coach from secondary school also contribute during your tertiary days?
Yes. So in university,
Mm,
I used to admire. There is this woman called Gifty,
okay.
very veteran journalist
Mm,
who has been in the media space for years, like for
okay.
decades. She used to host a program called The Standpoint, and at every point in time when she was hosting that program, I used to watch it. Some people thought it was sort of boring. For me, I was just looking at how she's able to put her words together, how she's able to speak to issues and
Mm.
all that. So she was really one of the people that I was looking up to.
Just to find out, what was the show about?
So the standpoint, they were talking about critical development issues,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
People sharing different perspectives
Mhm.
about certain issues, and sometimes they also profile people, like like the way sometimes you do on your podcast.
Mhm.
They profile people to get to know about people and how they have evolved in their career, especially when they have something to do with development.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
and so that is the program. I
Mhm.
really loved it.
Mhm.
I don't know whether it's still being hosted now, but
So the moment you found out what you do, you dumped your
oh, I
interest in
didn't really
standpoint.
dump it. I realized that. So I think one thing that really happened was that you know if you are a lover of communication and you are a lover of narratives, at every point in time you are so skewed towards trying to grab the new trends, like
Mhm.
of
Mhm.
issues happening and all that, and new programs, and we have others that are doing so well on their shows. You want to go watch a different show
Mhm.
altogether.
Mhm.
So as you grow professionally, you try to sort of discriminate a little. You try to be selective,
Mhm.
because I mean there is a congruence of a lot of you know a lot of programs happening
Yeah.
here, but you need to
Yeah.
be discretionary to just choose
Uh-huh.
maybe just one or two,
Yeah.
right?
Now,
That you
yes.
really like.
And now that I was going to ask, why the interest in the development space? You could have taken it to any other space, but why did you decide to specialize in development?
Absolutely. So I think why I decided to, but maybe before that,
Okay.
um, after my journalism school,
Mm.
I had my I had opportunity to work with a Ghana news agency where I practiced actual journalism, right?
Mm.
Where I had opportunity to be interviewing very top, profiles, including I had opportunity to actually meet the former vice president, Dr. Mahmoud Baumia.
Oh,
I carried some of his stories,
right.
I covered some of his stories. And not just that, I met very top hierarchy people,
Yeah.
you know. And during that time, after I was done with the Ghana News Agency, I worked there for a while, and then I moved straight to public relations.
Okay. Okay.
And so I realized that okay, it's not all the time that you'll be, you like people should you should always be in like, in front of people and all that. So why don't I go into how communication really help organizations
Right.
to achieve their visions and their missions, right?
Okay.
So I delve into PR. And then I worked with an international PR firm where I had opportunity to really work on very high level PR, campaigns, some having global reach and all that. But one thing that I noticed that when you put the two together, public relations and journalism,
Yeah.
PR is to help organizations, right?
Mhm.
use media as sort of the medium, right? Convey the messages from whatever you have with PR or whatever it says. You leverage on the media, right? And so after everything, I realized that there is something in between. There is something like at the end of it, or what is the bottom line, right? It is supposed to lead to change in the lives of people.
Exactly.
Right.
What are you seeking to do?
What are you seeking to do? I mean, okay, fine. If you are able to amplify the work of private sector, organizations, you are able to do journalism, bringing out issues, telling and reporting on very key issues for actions to be taken. I don't know that when you put all these two together, what exactly is it leading to? It's supposed to really affect people positively. It's supposed to change situations. It's supposed to address critical issues. Then I realized that, whoa, when you put all these things together, there is something we call development within, right? It's just about development. It's just that I hadn't really looked at the broader picture, right? So that was when I realized that, okay, with the knowledge from media, knowledge from public relations, working in the private sector, everything put together, I should be looking at the bottom line,
right,
which is the lives of people. And that is why I decided to, development. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm listening to you and I keep hearing it's you trying to figure things out on your own. I'm guessing you didn't have much external assistance from. So I'd like to know how were you able to navigate all of these on your own? Because looking at the trend, you seem to have just figured things out on your own. So how do you know when this decision is the right one to take? How do you know when this decision is not the right one to take? How do you know that this is going to lead to this?
This is a very important question, a very, very tough one as well. I think first of all, I'm a Christian.
Okay. Right.
So one thing that I really cherish is prayer.
Okay.
I pray about every move that I take. If I want to make any move to anything at all or anywhere, I pray about it. And I think about it deeply and ask God if it is really the right direction. Sometimes I actually, have certain things. I commit God into sort of an agreement that if
you have a discussion with him and
yes,
say, if this works, I will do this.
Yes. If you can show me this, then I will believe that this is the area you want me to go. Right. Sometimes it happens. Sometimes it may be that I have to try, and then if it works, then it's the answer I'm looking for. It's not all the time that I could get explicit, like say that, okay, so these are the signs. It shows that it's the right decision. Sometimes you pray about it, and then you have this urge to start it. When you start, then you see the outcome. Then it's sort of the answer for you. So that is how I managed to discover some of these areas, that were going to really shape my career. So nobody actually held my hand to point me to development as really an area that I should be looking at. But I sat down, prayed about it, looked at the things I was doing, and even and then I realized a sort of a trend. When I was in the journalism sector or the media sector, I was so enthused about stories that have to do with development, right? So issues of corruption, I did a story about the vice president, the former vice president Baumia, that I was talking about, that I think he made the pledge to reclaim some spent money that wasn't really spent well by the previous government, something like that. I did that story and followed up with so many stories that were very developmental. When I entered the PR space too, public relations space too, I realized that everything that we're doing, even though you're helping organizations to amplify their visibility and all that, but when you drill down, if they are rendering services, the bottom line of that service is to make people's life better, right? So when you think deep, it's about deep thinking as well. When you think deep and then looking at it holistically, someone would say strategically, the broader picture, right? then you realize that there is
This is
something
it.
more that
Yeah.
is actually beneath
Yeah.
when you put the two together or put everything you're doing together. So that was some of the tricks that I was, I would say the hacks that sometimes by the grace of God, I pray about it and I'll give this
So you
guidance
were
to help.
basically just carrying out experiments with your life. But the one thing I've picked up from this your experience is that whatever the case, it's always important to start first. When you
Absolutely.
start, it's easier to identify whether this is the right thing to do or it's not.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I know your journey must have been a challenging one. Again, like I mentioned before, you've had to do this mostly on your own. Can you share with us some of the challenges you had to go through and how you were able to
Yes.
walk
So
through this?
interesting. I think there is an aspect of how I transitioned even into the development that
Yeah.
I haven't really talked about.
Okay.
So, with the PR role that I played, it was sort of working for private sector.
Yeah.
And thereafter, I entered into full-fledged business development where I was combining PR, media, marketing, sales, everything together. I worked in the technology sector. I started the technology sector and then I moved through the ranks. In fact, I would say that I don't know, but naturally I like competition. I'm very competitive, one way or the other. Like
Okay.
it comes to me naturally.
Yeah.
So when I entered the private sector, when I launched my career in the tech sector as a business development person, I really grew quite really fast professionally to the point where I became the whole department, business development. I was a lead. That was like in the space of 3 years.
Okay.
Yeah, and I was supervising almost about I think 5 people. They were under me, looking at customer experience, that's media relations, that media and all that, sales, marketing, promotions, those sort of things. So I rose through the ranks to become the business development lead, and along the line, I moved on to another bigger tech organization as well. In that place too, I was still within similar ranks, right? But then it's like I leapfrogged to the development space, right? I left all these, roles and then I moved into the development sector, sort of, even though I have gathered diverse experience,
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
those things, the basics that will let me thrive in every space that I find myself. But I realized that the development sector on its own, it's also
Another
another
ball game.
sector
Yeah.
altogether.
Yeah.
It's a whole different ball game, right? And then when I entered, sometimes it was kind of very challenging making that decision.
Yeah.
Because in fact, my other colleagues were like, how would you build a very, thriving career in the private sector, doing so well, and then all of a sudden you want to transition into
development
development
What
sector.
exactly is
Like,
that?
what have you seen?
Yeah.
And funny enough, like some of them actually thought that, okay, well, maybe there is so much work in the private sector, so they want to he want to go into development sector, or I mean, they were even terming, usually they term everything as NGO.
NGO.
They say NGO, they don't
I
do
get
much,
that. Exactly.
right? In my mind, I was like, me, I don't believe they don't do much.
Yeah.
But even if they don't do much, once I step into the role, I know if I bring all these experiences that if I bring them together, I would like to do much.
Yeah,
Because
things would
for
fall in
me, I
line.
can't really. So even if they are not doing much, if I decide to put every skill that I have, into use, then it means I'm going to do a lot.
Yeah.
So there's no way I'll have something like. But then when I entered, I realized that this one is it.
This is much more than what you anticipated.
Absolutely, it was way a lot. I was like, so these people actually, so people really don't have that broader picture of
Yeah.
how this development space, how it operates,
Yeah.
the quantum of work involved, and so I felt like it was a very challenging decision for me, because at the point I was like, even when I entered again, I was doubting myself that, am I really in the right space? Even though, yes, I loved that everything I was doing was pointing up to development, but I wasn't doing direct. Like, you see, journalism, whatever, whatever, they are all leading to development, right? They are sort of indirectly
Yeah,
leading to
yeah, yeah,
development. But
yeah.
this time around, the
It
development
was
itself
not
is what you are
indirect. Yeah, it
inside.
was directly.
so, so, so I was like, wow.
You chose
It's
quality over quantity. We're not very interested in that.
yes, absolutely. So I mean, it was really very challenging decision
Yeah.
for me,
I know.
and
Transitioning comes
yeah,
with a lot of challenges.
it's really, really, really challenging.
Yeah, moving
Really
from one thing that you've actually specialized in for years and
yes,
getting into a new sector where you
yes.
have to start learning all
The
over.
context, you need to
Exactly.
appreciate the context.
Exactly.
You need to, because I knew beforehand that communication sort of it's there are certain principles, right?
Mm-hmm.
There are certain skill sets. If I can design, I
Mm-hmm.
can write,
Mm-hmm.
I can engage the media, I can do strategic communication and all that. I feel like whatever you do in the private sector, all these skill sets, it's almost the same thing.
Yeah.
Just that the bottom line or the KPIs for the development sector
Development
is a
space.
little different
Different.
from,
Yeah.
because in the private sector, everything that I'm doing is about profiteering, right? It should lead to bottom line
Yeah.
profits.
Yeah.
But in the development
Development space.
space, the profit that you get is the change in the lives of
Yeah.
people.
Yeah. It's like same process, just different deliverables.
Different, yes,
Different
absolutely.
or objectives or
The
something.
different objectives,
Okay.
right? So, well, I mean, I think it's one of my most challenging, decision that I ever took.
Okay. So, and in all of these, at the end of the day, there was a reason why you finally transitioned because you are interested in the well-being of people. So, what's the most rewarding thing you are proud of now? What's that thing? That one thing that you look at and you say, well, this is an achievement to me.
Okay, so when it comes to, I would say, well, I mean, you said one, right?
Yeah, one. The
Uh,
most proud thing you have.
I think that it's about amplifying the voices that often go unheard, right? When I entered the development sector, I realized that there were so many players doing a great work,
Yeah.
but they're like unsung heroes, right? Nobody really they are not seeing much of the work that they are
They
doing.
do. Yeah.
So, what is one thing that is fulfilling to me is that I have now gotten the opportunity to really tell these stories
Right. Right.
in their raw state
Yeah.
for people to really appreciate the impact actors like yourself are really making the development sector. For me, it is nothing is more fulfilling than that.
So
Right.
it's more about you playing the role of an advocate.
Yes,
Oh,
yes,
I see.
yes,
I see,
yes, yes. And then again, so for instance, my current role at where I work, West Africa Civil Society Institute, we are mainly into strengthening the capacity of CSOs so they can respond to their missions effectively, right? And not just by responding to their mission effectively means that the end goal is to make sure that they serve the constituent that they work for
Yeah.
very well,
Yeah.
right? And so one thing that always comes fulfilling to me is when I tell the institute stories in a way that convey the impact that we are making, right? And in a way that equally also educates, the actors and let them feel that they are doing great work, right? Good. And so that is what I find fulfilling in the work that I do.
That's very interesting. So, there are a couple of people out there who are going through some of these challenges of maybe transitioning from one field to the other, or even trying to find that thing that they're passionate about and would love doing. So you realize that most people have resorted to just finding whatever it is they can find and maybe learning to love the thing, even though sometimes it doesn't work. So, if you were to give advice to, say, maybe youth who are just graduating from college, from the university, or those who are moving into the university, or those who are struggling to transition into something that they're passionate about, what are some of the things you would advise them on?
So I think I'll always use my story as an inspiration for them.
Yeah.
When I left corporate PR and tech for the nonprofit sector, I worried if the space or the development sector would value someone like me, right? Someone who didn't come in with, development studies,
Yeah.
didn't come in with political science.
Yeah.
But along the line, I quickly realized that change needs a communicator, just as a policymaker is also needed when it comes to change. So based on that, and based on what I've just said, right, I also realized that the thought that I had were just sort of myself trying to kill my own confidence. Because when I entered the development sector, I realized they even needed people with skills, that diverse skills in PR, in marketing, in journalism, and even more than what I actually envisioned. Actually, so what everybody has to know is that until sometime you make the decision, the bold ones, you never can tell how it will look like.
Yeah.
Right? You are dreading to start, but start anyway.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And normally, sometimes where you really think that you won't really, thrive, that is where you actually blossom.
Exactly.
When you go there, then you realize that, wow, do you get it?
Yeah.
You still have life. I mean, if you make that decision, right, and then it doesn't turn out to be good, you don't have to worry. I mean, there is no way you could have known if you hadn't tried in the first place.
Yeah.
So you need to, first of all, try it, go for it, right? I've seen people with quite a similar instances where they said, okay, the job, you may not necessarily qualify for it, but apply for it anyway.
Yeah, apply for it anyway.
Do you get my point? Just apply for it. That is what I would tell everyone.
Yeah.
Don't feel scared. Fear is the strongest enemy to everybody's progress.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Put in the first step. Go for it. Take the bold decision and see how the outcome will turn out.
Right.
Yeah. And above all, just believe in God and believe in your conviction that positivity exudes positiveness. Like, you need to always be positive. You need to be very optimistic. Don't be thinking that, I may fail.
It might not work. I'm not qualified.
The reason why you would almost fail is that because you have already consider yourself as a failure, like you feel like you will fail, you don't even give in your best. At a point where you could actually survey the situation, it goes to reaffirm your initial thoughts that, but I said I will fail, so I thought as much.
Do what I thought I would do.
I thought as much.
The power of your mind.
So the mind is very, very powerful. So let's fill it with so much positivity. Make that bold decision. Go for it, right? You may be in the health sector. You want to venture into the development space. You don't have to be scared.
Go for it.
Right? Nobody was born with,
the ability to figure things out.
Yeah, that you are a nurse.
Exactly.
Yes, even nurses can leverage their nursing career to do development.
Yeah.
It's a matter of transferring these skills and making it make sense, right? By the way I did.
Yeah.
PR, journalism, and all, even tech. In the tech sector, like I told you, I was doing business development. I was supervising people that are doing graphic design because I was also designing as well. When you look at the work that I do right now, I realize that it's like I have packed my skills in like a wardrobe, right? Anytime the need comes, I'll just open and just take one and then come and fix it. Do you get my point? That is really how it looks like. I have shared all the skills there and I'm applying each of them to the peculiar needs, right? Then I realized that technically, all the skills that have been shoved in there all
You're
of them have a
using them.
role to play
Yeah,
in the work that I'm
at
doing,
some point.
right?
Exactly.
You just bring them as
Exactly.
tools. Just take this one and you just apply. So that is what I would tell everyone. Don't be scared to try.
Oh, Gideon, this has really been very interesting. My last question now is: given all of these, do you have any regrets?
Oh, interesting,
Do you have any
interesting
regrets?
question. Interesting question.
Sometimes
So
we transition and
my
regret.
regret is this.
Oh, he does.
I do have a regret,
Okay.
but not the regret in us in transitioning.
Okay. Okay.
My regret is not transitioning fast or earlier. Yeah,
Okay.
because then I realized that, oh, if I had started this whole development work where I was sort of using my university fresh skills to hit the ground running in the sector of development, right?
Yeah.
I could have, by now, maybe I would have been, well,
Director of communications somewhere.
of course,
at the ministry
I
or
may
something.
have been a director of communication, or maybe I may have even had my own communication bureau that is focused on the development sector. Well, that is something that is
Yeah, it's not late.
I'm planning actually.
Yeah, it's not late.
That is really one of my future,
Nice.
But
Nice.
I felt that if I had started earlier, by now, all these cumulated 8 years experience would have been tracked to development sector, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that sometimes like I ask myself, okay, so when you look at my career profile, this is someone who has built a blended skills for like almost
Couple
8
of
years, right?
Yeah.
But he has had like about 3 to 4 years experience in the development sector.
Yeah.
Do you get my point?
Yeah.
For that particular sector, it's just 3 to 4 years, right?
Mhm.
But I have built all these skills over the years. So I thought if I had built these skills in the development sector initially, maybe by now, like I told you, by now I shall be
Would have been
like
calling you
I will be executive
Your
director of some
Excellency.
communication, development sector communication, organization somehow or somewhere. But really, that is a dream that I have.
Yeah.
which
At the end of the day,
hopefully-
all things work out for good.
Definitely.
So,
Then again, I feel like even though it seems like a regret, but then I felt like God was trying to, direct me through a certain path because I needed to understand because as a civil society organization, our key stakeholders, who do we if we are influencing policies, who are we influencing the policies for? Private sector, obviously. The ordinary person, in the community, right? So if we want a platform that can really amplify the voices of the people, we use media. So everything put together, is leading to me being able to thrive in the development sector. So even though it comes as a regret, but I felt like it was God's own wisdom
it
of
was just
letting me gather that experience.
repositioning.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because now I draw on the insight from the private sector to be able to make meaningful, discussions when it comes to development issues. Right. Yeah. So that is what I can say about that.
Thank you so much, Gideon. I feel like you've been able to convince a couple of people to actually join communications, to actually become media specialists
It's a nice
as a
profession.
career.
That I can assure you.
It's really been interesting listening to you, and I'm sure we can have this conversation for a whole day and we'll still have a lot to say.
Definitely.
But if there are some things I picked up from the conversation, one of the key things is that you need to make those bold decisions.
Absolutely.
If you sit and think that, no, I need to have everything figured out before I start, then you might just realize that you'll be starting when your life is ending. So whatever it is, if it's something you think you're interested in, the key point here is just start. Sometimes where you think you won't thrive is where you would end up blossoming.
Absolutely.
That job that you think that you're not qualified for, go ahead and apply for it. I remember when you said this, it just reminded me of myself. I remember coming out from the sciences and applying for a job in the civil society space. I bet you it was challenging. I asked myself a couple of questions. True. What qualifications do I even have to do this? But I did it anyway, and I think I have not regretted that since the moment I submitted that application.
You are really one of the great people that I really admire. in
Thank
the
you so
sector.
much. Thank you so much, Gideon. And the last thing I learned is fear is the strongest enemy to progress.
Yeah,
The
that's true.
moment you start being afraid, that's the moment you're ticking those boxes that are hindering your progress.
That's true.
Thank you so much, Gideon. It's really been amazing talking to you. And to all those who have been listening to us, thank you so much for being our constant and loyal listeners. And today, Gideon has changed the narrative. Before now, I would normally say, I'm looking forward to having you on our next episode. Until then, don't give up. But I think today I would want to change that and say, until then, just start. Start whatever it is. That thing that you have thought of, just start. Thank you so much, Gideon. It's been a pleasure having you.
Thank you very much.